Welcome to the Wall of Soundtrack, a show where we discuss the music and soundtracks behind the very best TV shows and motion pictures. In this episode, we'll be discussing the music and soundtrack behind the HBO critically acclaimed series, The Sopranos. The Sopranos is a crime drama television series that aired on HBO. The story revolves around a fictional New Jersey mafia crime boss named Tony Soprano and the life of his family and associates. The Sopranos was created by David Chase. The show ran for a total of 6 seasons from 1999 to 2007. The show garnered 21 Primetime Emmy Awards, 5 Golden Globes, and 2 Peabody Awards. The show was also well known for its all-star cast, including the late and beloved James Gandolfini, who played the main character, Tony Soprano. His wife, Carmela Soprano, played by Edie Falco. His daughter, Meadow Soprano, played by Jamie Lynn Sigler. His son, AJ Soprano, played by Robert Eiler. His consigliere, Silvio Dante, played by Stevie Van Zandt. His psychiatrist, Dr. Melfi, played by Lorraine Bracco. His uncle, Junior Soprano, played by Dominique Chianese. And his nephew, Christopher Moltisanti, played by Michael Imperioli. The guest for this discussion is not only a good friend of mine, but he's a columnist for the entertainment commentary and review website, Action A GoGo. Cy Shackleford is a huge fan of comic books, music, and all things hip-hop. He is a graduate of the University of Connecticut. You can follow his articles on actionagogo.com, and you can follow him on Twitter. His Twitter handle is @Shack_House83. Here's my discussion with Cy on the music behind The Sopranos. All right. We're live, man. How's it going?
I'm going great. It's going great. I'm glad to be here for the inaugural podcast.
Thanks so much for doing it, man. Good to have you here. So how did you get involved with Action A GoGo?
Well, I used to just post like a bunch of witticisms on my status updates on Facebook, and then I started branching out into like writing album reviews, I guess, via Facebook Notes. And the guys who run Action A GoGo, Derek Scarzella and Troy Jeffrey Allen, they're friends of mine. I met them at Alliance Comics in Silver Spring many years prior. And then Troy approached me one day and he basically said, "You're way too clever just to be relegated to Facebook. How about you write for us?" And I asked them what they were about. They said action movies, action, live action TV, pop culture in general. And they pretty much gave me carte blanche at first to write whatever I want, however I wanted to. But I had to just kind of tone it down and just kind of hone my writing to be more, to go at the targets I was going at, you know?
Gotcha. So how did you get so into Marvel comics, like comic books? I mean, was that something you picked up as a kid?
Yeah, it's something I picked up on as a kid. Remember the woman that babysat me when I was in preschool and elementary school, her oldest son, he was a big action sci-fi fan. He had a bunch of those movies taped on VHS and had a big comic book collection too. And I started just picking up on that, asking questions, watching and reading the films when he wasn't around, and then doing the same thing at home. And when I was old enough to make my own money, around after elementary school, around middle school I think it was, that's when I spent the majority of my funds, my allowance, on comic books and comic book cards. Basically anything I can just get my hands on and feed myself information about this. I still collect comics to this day. I don't know how much my collection is worth, or I never had it appraised. I don't even know how many issues I have, but it's a lifelong passion that hasn't died out. And Marvel over DC.
Yeah, for sure, man. I was always when I was younger, I got into Ghost Rider. I don't know if you're into that or
the Danny Ketch Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
That was the first Ghost Rider I was introduced to when I was in elementary school. I learned about the Johnny Blaze version later on, but Danny Ketch, the Ghost Rider from the '90s, that was my intro.
Awesome, man. So I was looking at some of your articles that you wrote, and I really liked your Sicario 2 Soldado
Thank you.
Trailer analysis. And so what do you think about that movie?
I do think they're going to up the ante on this movie. I mean, the first one, I saw that on a whim, just because I saw Brolin's name and Benicio del Toro's name attached to it, and it's like, okay, this might be just a cool action film. And it was just more than that, though. It was like, if you've seen it, there's one scene in there where that still leaves me like, gasping like near the end. That's how effective that film was. And the cinematography was great. Yeah, the action, the acting, and the commentary they have about the American government's involvement in the drug trade, that was really good. So the second movie, they say, is going to make it look like a walk in the park at Disneyland's. We'll see. We'll see. And the trailer looks good, but it's going to be hard to top the first one.
Yeah, I mean the score too is just like incredible. I mean when you're, looking at that scene where they're going into Juarez and that helicopter shot. I mean, it's just like it's eerie, man. You just feel like you don't even know. You don't know what monster you're gonna encounter across the border. You know.
Yeah, it's very tense. The score was very tense during that scene, and they used the same score when they were going through the tunnel as well.
Right, right. Yeah, I just I think it's going to be interesting because it looks like Josh Brolin's character, Matt Graver, and Alejandro, which is played by Del Toro, it looks like they're actually kind of facing off based on the plot. Like they may be kind of adversaries. I don't know if you picked up on that during the trailer. Or...
I didn't pick that up during the trailer. I just assumed that they were still together as government operatives sent in to do government dirty work, pretty much. And from the way it looks in this film, they're dealing with terrorists who are being smuggled in through Mexican drug cartels. So, and it looks like they gave them the freedom just to go at them any way they want to. And usually, based on what we saw in the first film, that's what they do best, when they have more freedom to act autonomously against their targets.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how I feel about the last director. Was it Denis Villeneuve?
Villeneuve. Yeah.
I know I'm butchering his name, but he was just fantastic, man. I don't know if you've seen some of his other films, but I mean, I don't know.
I saw A Most Violent Year. I have that on Blu-ray. I saw that. That was really good. Forget whatever else he might have directed.
I think he did the new Blade Runner too. Did you get a chance to see that? Or
yes, I did actually. You're right. He did do the most recent Blade Runner. I'm more partial to Ridley Scott's version. All four of Ridley Scott's versions, actually. The one that Villeneuve did, it just... For one thing, you shouldn't do sequels more than 10 years after the original. And his version felt like he was much more... He was trying to make it a lot more bombastic, like more epic than the first one was.
Right.
Visually, it looked good, but it was like... it's all right at the end. That's all I was like, it's all right, but the original was better.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty hard to top Ridley Scott. I mean, I think there's only one other director in my mind that's done that, and that's James Cameron with the follow-up to Alien, which was Aliens.
Aliens, yes.
And that was just, it's like, whoa, if you can top the first one, if you're able to top Ridley's version with the first movie, I just think that kind of speaks miles to Cameron as a director, right?
And he knows. And plus, the first Alien, that was like a horror film in space. When James Cameron got his hands on being able to do the sequel, he made it more like a character-driven sci-fi action drama. Because you got more of, a Ripley. You got more of her character in there. And there were things in the deleted scenes in Aliens that I think they should have kept in the movie as well, too. Like when Ripley wakes up and asks about her daughter and learns that she was dead, it's like they should have kept that in the original as well. That was good character development, apart from her protecting the kid and still going at the alien colonies that are on that planet.
Yeah, they left that out, and I think that was like you said, an important piece of the story there because I think people walking into that movie for the first time, not seeing the first one, it kind of leaves them a little confused on like, okay, why is she in the spaceship? Like, why is she,
in suspended animation floating around in space like
right.
that? Yeah.
Right, yeah. But, that's an incredible film and definitely one of my favorites. But, it'll be interesting to see how they kind of develop that franchise because it's kind of, I think it's taken a steer for the worst, unfortunately.
Well, with Prometheus
with Prometheus and Covenant, and it's just, where do they go next? I know Neil Blomkamp was the guy who directed District 9.
Mm-hmm.
He was planning on actually doing a fifth movie, which would have been, I guess, a different plot where Sigourney Weaver and Hicks and Newt actually survived. And then that was going to be the plot. But I guess now it's like, who knows what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, it's just like the Terminator franchise. It's like they've done like 5 films already and a TV series, and anything after the second film I've come to regard as just standalone what-if stories. Because when I saw Terminator 3, I was thinking, what can they do after Cyberdyne was destroyed in the second one, and they basically prevented the Terminator future from happening? And they gave like a version of like, oh, this is what happens when Cyberdyne's building wasn't destroyed and the government got control over their properties and they decided to create Skynet and the Terminators. That's what happened in this timeline. I'm like, okay, a what-if version. That's why I tell people whenever they ask me if I've seen a Terminator film, it's like the first 2, that's all you need to see.
Yeah, yeah.
If you don't want to get too confused by the plot and whatnot, just see the first 2. Everything else is just what-if stories.
Yeah. I agree. I think they kind of really tried to milk the franchise, but...
And plus, James Cameron, he endorsed the 5th one, Terminator Genesis. That's the only reason I went to go see it.
Right.
And after that, I was like slapping my head, having arguments on Facebook with other fans of the films, trying to explain to them how this film is not in continuity with the first 2, and how the special effects under Cameron, they were way better than anything that's come after T2.
Right. I definitely in agreement with you there. But so let's jump into The Sopranos, man. Like this is one of my favorite TV series. I think it has some of the best music in a TV show, period. I mean, just the choice of music, Chase and his producer Martin Brusel really took a lot of time to pick the music, and I think it matches very well with the scenes.
And some of them sound like offbeat choices at first. I mean, like one of the strip club scenes that we're going to analyze later on, they had a Linkin Park song in there, and I was like, how I can see this playing in a strip club, but how does this correlate to what the dialogue of the characters is talking about?
Right.
But it does. On second viewing, you get to see the context of the scene as it pertains to the music.
Right, and I think the genres kind of span the gamut, right? I mean, you have everything from hip hop to classic rock
yeah,
to metal, like Linkin Park.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's a DJ track, but still, I mean, I think it's just such a variety, and I think it adds so much. I can't think of any other shows. Miami Vice may be one of them that had just incredible music as well.
Yeah,
but
they were the first to actually incorporate like music into their, because they had a real like cinematic way of telling their story as well. It's probably one of the first of their kinds, and incorporating music in there, it gave it a style that everybody else was influenced by eventually.
And
even the Sopranos, like you just said, David Chase knew what he wanted to do with the music, just like Doug Ellen, what he wanted to do with Entourage.
Exactly.
Because they had good choices of music in there too.
Yeah, I think the music was really great in Entourage as well. I think, like you said, they were living up to what was Miami Vice, the music in Miami Vice.
Oh yeah.
But so let's talk about that first, the title sequence there for The Sopranos. That again, I will say, I think is one of the best show opening title sequences. You have the song there. It's composed by Alabama 3, and they're actually a British band. But I think that song is just incredible because it captures, I feel like, a lot of themes of the show. And it's a mafia show, but I think it covers those themes like patriarchy of the Italian mafia family, and then it also I think captures Tony's personality. He's kind of a sociopath.
He's paranoid too. Yeah. And the whole woke up this morning, got yourself a gun. He means
right.
You've always got to be on guard.
Yeah, and I think it's also the violence factor too, right? I mean that this is a mafia show, and these guys are criminals.
Territory. Yeah.
Exactly. And
the visual of him being on the New York side of the Holland Tunnel and driving back home to New Jersey and seeing all those areas in that part of New Jersey until he gets back to his nice, posh suburban house.
Right. So it's like the intro kind of takes you
into his world.
Into his world, like he's coming from the New York side, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the Lincoln Tunnel, but that's okay. I get them confused all the time too. But it's like he's coming out of you see him coming out of the Lincoln Tunnel, and then he's coming from his like New York crime kind of life, and then he's going over to Jersey, taking the Jersey Turnpike and kind of going back to suburbia, like you said. And I think that's what makes the intro so awesome, because Chase is taking you into his life.
Yeah, and that's how he was born in New York and he was raised in Jersey, and that's another thing we're going to discuss as well too, like the whole divide between those two states and how they're neighboring and how it filters over to their residents as well too. And within the context of the show, the mafia that's in New York and Tony Soprano's mafia in Jersey too.
Yeah, exactly.
And they, on a side note, HBO, they had like a brief special for that when the show was still airing, like highlighting, saying who's tougher, New York or New Jersey. And of course, a lot of the actors in there, Gandolfini and what was his name, Joe Pantoliano. Joe Pantoliano's like, well, I'm from Jersey, so I got to say Jersey. Like he was saying that reluctantly.
Right, like and Gandolfini's from Jersey too.
Yeah, Park Ridge.
So, yeah. So I think it's always interesting. I mean, they really, when they were casting, got just. I mean, those actors looked and played the part perfectly. I mean, they look like real. Everybody looked like real, believable people in that show.
And they wanted, and to add authenticity to it, they used actors that were mostly actors that were from New York City or somewhere from the neighboring tri-states, like New York or Connecticut. I mean, New Jersey or Connecticut. Right.
I think what's really cool about that song, "Woke Up This Morning," is like the lyrics and how they kind of match up. How they kind of match up with the show. You know, woke up this morning, like you said, got yourself a gun, but. Another line I really like from the lyrics of that song is, your mama always said you'd be the chosen one, going back to that whole patriarchy, you know, Tony being the one who's going to lead the family. And I think if you go back to season 6, where AJ is kind of suffering from depression and he doesn't know what to do with his life, he's speaking with Meadow, and Meadow says, you know, AJ, you're the male. You're always going to be the more important one. And I think that's kind of cool how kind of ties back to that theme, right?
Yeah, it does actually. It does actually. The theme of patriarchy in the family, like, so you got a son and a daughter. The son, even if he's younger, will still always be looked upon as the more important one, I guess.
Yeah.
The chosen one.
The chosen one. Yeah. So yeah, awesome song. I think it's definitely one of the best openers out there. But so if we go into season 1, I think it's actually season 1, episode 1.
Yeah, there's episode.
Yeah, there's a scene where Tony and Paulie and I believe it's Christopher.
His nephew,
his nephew. They're talking about how they're going to handle a garbage issue. I think there's another competitor.
Barone and
Cola, yeah. And there's that song playing in the background. And it's by Wray called Rumble.
Yes.
I had never heard. I was always wondering for the longest time who did that song, because I'd heard it in other films. I think Pulp Fiction was another one.
Independence Day, they use it there too.
Right.
And as I was watching this scene in The Sopranos, when they were discussing what to do about the issue, the garbage issue, and the song playing in the background, it's like it's in a pork store.
Yeah.
And I kind of hark back to, because this was what, 1999, 1997, I think it was.
Yeah. I think it was 99.
Okay, 99 then. Okay.
99, yeah. It ran from 99 to 2007.
Because what's it called? When they use it in Independence Day, they use it in a similar scene where Randy Quaid's character is drinking at a bar.
Right.
And then the tension starts building up until we see the spaceship come out.
Yeah.
Right. In this scene right here, we know that what they're about to do, the solution that Christopher and Tony, they're trying to come up with, is not a legal one, which kind of harks back to the song itself. The song was actually banned from the radio.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. I did not know that. That's. And I know it's influenced a lot of bands and guitarists. Yeah. I think it influenced Jimmy Page. He said that was like the first
down-tuned guitar.
Right. So I'm glad I finally found out. I mean, it's all this time, but I think it's perfect though. It just works perfectly with that scene, because you know something's going down, and you know it's not. It's not. Yeah, it's not good.
And plus, it's pretty versatile song to use in any genre of film too.
Right.
It's like because it's just an instrumental that gives it this versatility right there.
Yeah. You don't, like you said, I don't even think you need to put lyrics over it, because the tone.
The sound actually just sets the tone for it.
Yeah, and it's rumble. It's like, you know, something's going down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Chris is he's got an idea, but it's probably not a good one, right? And it may get him in trouble. So yeah, I love that song. And there's another one too. It was in episode 11. Was it Nobody Knows Anything? that one.
That was actually "I Dream of Jeannie," episode 13. That's where that song was used.
Okay.
The Murder of Chucky Signore.
Signore, yeah. By R.L. Burnside. He's a blues rock artist, but does some really, really cool music. I mean, and this one kind of has a beat to it. I don't want to say it's electronic, but it just sounds like different, you know?
Yeah, it does. Almost industrial.
Yeah, almost industrial, but it works, again, perfectly. That's where Chase comes in and just makes it work perfectly. And you see him, Tony, he walks down to the dock with that big fish. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he pulls out the gun
and just shoots him right in the back.
Yeah, I mean, it's like in broad daylight. So you're like, how did no one hear that, right?
And plus, the fact they use that song to like overlap with the scene itself is like there's a black humor to it that Chase has clearly.
Yeah, and then when Tony gets down, Tony and Silvio, who's played by Stevie Van Zandt, and he was actually the guitar player for Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band.
Yeah, he was actually.
Yeah, he was, which I think that's
Jersey connection right there.
Another Jersey connection, and that's just cool. I mean, you have like a rock star in your show. I mean, that's just different. You know, I haven't seen a lot of shows that have that, you know.
The Wire had it. They had like a few musicians in the show that had regular casting parts in there, like Steve Earle. He played Waylon, Method Man.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about Method Man.
And Fredro Starr from season 1 and 2, and he played Bird, one of Avon's shooters.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's funny, too, because Tony walks down to the boat, and then he puts on the captain hat, and then they drive off. And it's just like, and I mean, the title of the song, it's bad, something happened that was like a crime. Yeah, so and it just works perfectly again.
And Junior, that's his uncle, right?
Yeah, Junior, played by Dominique Chianese. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names, but yeah, that was a great song and a great scene to use it in. And then so I guess we'll jump over to season 2 now.
Let's do that.
And so the season 2 is interesting because Junior's kind of not completely out of the picture, but he's been arrested, so he's awaiting trial, and Tony's you see him kind of slowly cementing his position as the head capo and head of the DeMeo crime family.
Yeah, with his uncle out of the way, that's less competition, even if it is just for a short time.
Right.
Because his uncle was always jealous that Tony and his father, they moved ahead in the organization ahead of him.
Right. So season 2, you have the opener, episode 1. It was called "Guy Walks into Psychiatrist Office." It's a Frank Sinatra song called "It Was a Very Good Year," and I think it just works well. One, because it's a nice kind of synopsis of
what happened the previous season.
What happened the previous season, and what's happening now, and what's going on now, and
using Frank Sinatra being an Italian from Jersey himself.
Right.
Yeah, that was also deliberate on Chase's part. Had to be.
Yeah, and I think he also was rumored to have mafia ties, right?
Oh, yeah, he was. Yeah, I mean the Rat Pack, him, Sammy Davis Jr. They were all connected with the mafia in some sense.
Yeah. So I mean, another great choice for music there.
But considering everything that happened in season 1, I mean, what's it called? It's a fitting and ironic choice to use. What's it called? It was a very good year.
Yeah, and then I think one of the funnier moments here is the next episode I'm going to talk about. House Arrest. Yeah. So Chase uses the band The Pretenders, with a song called Space Invaders. It was just an instrumental. There are no lyrics over it or no singing, but it's kind of like there's some comedy in it, because the scene is a garbage truck pulling into a deli shop essentially, and the garbage truck just dumps the entire load of garbage on the parking lot.
Yeah, what's it called? The deli owner, he was complaining about having to pay double because he missed his payments. So what's it called? They just gave him double his garbage right back.
Yeah.
And he acted like he couldn't speak no English before, but when he saw that, I'm like, you know how to curse at them, don't you? Okay.
Yeah.
That's what made it funny, too.
I think he dropped the F-bomb like it had to be 10 to 15
10 to 15 times, 20 times maybe.
Yeah. But the title Space Invader, like the garbage truck coming in and kind of, for lack of
space.
Invading your space. It worked perfectly, but there's a bit of comedy there too, right?
And the comedy, and also the other comedy of it is don't piss off no garbage collectors, especially if they're connected with the mafia.
Right. And that was when I think Richie Aprea, he had sent the garbage truck over, and they were sitting on the other end of the phone line listening to this deli owner complain and laughing about it.
It was funny.
Yeah, it was really funny. It was really funny. One of the many comedic moments in the show. So.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, and then so then we'll jump into season 3, and I guess I'll give the listeners a little bit of context about what happens in season 3. So I'll try not to spoil the show, but
if you haven't seen it,
yeah, Richie. So essentially, in season 2, Tony clashes with Richie Aprea. Tony finds out that he's going to be a problem, and he finds out that Richie is conspiring with his uncle Junior to have him clipped. Junior tells Tony, informs him of this, and then Tony was moving to take out Richie, but it looks like his great sister Janice took care of it for him.
Yeah, she did.
And then so Richie gets essentially murdered by Janice. They have a fight, and then Janice shoots him. And then, of course, she calls Tony to take care of it, right?
Right.
So he's out of the picture. Season 3, what was it? Episode 1, where they again play Alabama 3. Tony's walking down to pick up his newspaper, and you hear this song. And man, this is a tough song title to enunciate here. The Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlife. Yeah.
It's alliterative, yeah.
Yeah.
All the L's that are in there.
Yeah. But again, works perfectly. He uses Alabama 3 again, which I think Chase said that he heard on K-Rock, because he was, I think K-Rock's a California radio station or LA?
Yeah, either California or somewhere like Georgia or somewhere. One of them, I think.
Okay.
I know they have like a radio station similar to a radio festival similar to what we used to have with HF Festival.
Right.
Because I remember USA, the network, they used to connect the WWF wrestling organization with K-Rock on one of their Raw episodes at one point, and had them posing with a bunch of bands that were at the K-Rock festival, like Seven Dust, Stain, Kitty. This is back in '99, though.
Right. Well, man, wasn't music good back then, right?
It still is if you know where to look.
Yeah, you got to look at the right place, and especially with rock and hip hop now, I feel like it's all kind of changed, but
yeah, the bar has dropped so low that you could limbo through it.
Right. Yeah, I think you're definitely right about that. But back to the song here. It fits perfectly. The lyrics are talking about it's not a man, but it's a woman walking down.
It depicts the life of a crime boss. Though it's like
right.
Tony, he doesn't get up until the sun goes down. Doesn't come down until the sun comes up.
Right. So you see, and you see that throughout the show. Tony he's got this kind of wild lifestyle. He stays out late. He's not faithful to his wife.
Hell no, he isn't.
Yeah. So, but another great pick, and I guess we can jump into the next song in season 3, which is The Police, and I think that's actually still in the first episode.
It is in the first episode. Yeah, this is all within the first episode still. Yeah, and I like how. I forget the song they were using right before it transitions into The Police Is Every Breath You Take. It had a very smooth transition, by the way, too.
It worked. Like the music editor did a great job of orchestrating that transition. It worked perfectly, and I haven't really seen any other show do that. I mean,
no, not me neither. Not that smoothly.
Yeah.
That song they used before, I remember seeing it in Sin City, in the opening credits to the 2005 film Sin City.
Yeah, and I was looking for it. I couldn't find it on the internet. Like, there's a show, and I'm going to give a little plug to a website that tracks this. It's called TuneFind, and
I know that one.
They tracked all of the, or most of the songs that were in the Sopranos soundtrack. But yeah, that they did a great job with that transition. And I mean, the police too.
That's like the go-to song for like stalking or surveillance.
Yeah, and it works perfectly in that scene because the FBI they're trying to get into Tony's house to bug the house, and they're having all these problems with, having to worry about the maid, about certain people coming in,
do without
the
being
house.
seen.
Yeah, and I still don't know how legally they did that. If it was like if they have to have a specific type of warrant to place a wire in a house, because I feel like there'd be some sort of invasion of privacy going on there or issue there. But
you would think so, yeah. But law enforcement, they find ways to get around that all the time.
Right.
Like in that movie Traffic, like at the end when Don Cheadle he goes back into what's his face Stephen Bauer's home under the pretense of starting a fight, but he's really there to put a bug under his desk.
Right.
And they don't show what happens in the movie after that happens, but in the script they just show Don Cheadle monitoring the drug dealer, and it's like, okay, we can get him now. He thinks he's untouchable. Now we can stop him.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but how legal is this though? That's the real question.
Right. And it's interesting because like going back to Del Toro again in Traffic, Sicario coming back. I think it's great to see. It's great to see Del Toro kind of come back into the limelight, because I think he won an Academy Award for Traffic, right?
He won Best Supporting Actor, yeah.
Okay.
And long before that, I remember him being a Bond villain from License to Kill.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's the first place I saw him in, and then seeing him after that, it's like, I know that guy.
Yeah.
I know he was going to be as big as he turned out to be, though. I'm glad he is.
Yeah, he's a great actor. He's got kind of that... like when I think of like the way his face looks, he's got like a real gritty look to him, like Daniel Craig.
Like a tired look almost.
Yeah. I think he would be a cool Bond. I mean, I know that they're kind of throwing that around a little bit.
He could pull it off. A lot of people think he's just a basic Hispanic actor, pretty much, and relegated to those roles. But not. If you see him in a conversation, he has like an American accent, laid back, everything.
I think he's from Puerto Rico.
Yeah, he's born in Puerto Rico, but he was actually raised here in small town Pennsylvania.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, so that song was great, and then we go into what was it? I believe it was the Kinks, right?
Living on a Thin Line by the Kinks. Yeah,
Living on a Thin Line. That's got to be one of the top songs. It almost sounds like a Pink Floyd song. It's got a very trippy sound to it.
It does, and the lyrics and the way things, if you know the context of the scene really in relation to the lyrics, it's like the message I got from it, the past is prologue.
Yeah. And I think the lyrics, when you listen to them, like living on a thin line, living this way, each day is a dream, what am I supposed to do? And you hear that again in the chorus, what am I supposed to do? It really highlights the themes behind that episode. Tony is struggling to get along with Ralphie and is having a lot of problems with it. Ralphie ends up dating this stripper and ends up getting
But the stripper ends up liking Tony a little bit more. Like Ralphie, he just gets a Pop-Tart and a soda. Tony gets some homemade bread. So it's like, no wonder Ralphie ends up killing her eventually.
Yeah, and it's just screwed up. I mean, I remember seeing that episode for the first time and walking away and being like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, this, yeah.
When he did that, I was like, okay, Tony is going to fuck you up.
Yeah, and he did. He punched a maid guy, and it got him, it started this whole feud in season 3. And you hear the song played, I believe it's in the beginning of the episode, where the scene opens up where they're in the strip club.
Yeah.
And Tracy is... I think that's where she gives him the bread.
The bread, yeah, and he was basically he's being very paternalistic with her.
Yeah.
Trying to like not be too inviting to her, like not giving her the wrong idea. Be professional, I guess.
Yeah. And it's, again, I remember walking away from that episode after I saw it, and I was like, man, I feel dirty. Like, this is like, I mean, because he essentially kills like a 24-year-old, right? Or a 20.
She's in her 20s.
She's in her 20s. And she's pregnant too, so I mean
that made it even worse.
Yeah, it made it even worse, and I think that's why Tony ends up punching Ralphie, who's a made guy. So it's kind of spurs up this whole big beef between those two, which trickles into season 4. But I remember the episode opens up, and I think it closes with that song.
It does, yes.
But yeah, that one I remember kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. I remember after watching that.
I was like, what is going to happen next? It's like, okay, I didn't know what to think when I first saw it the first time. I was like, I need a minute.
Yeah, and I think that what Tony realizes is that Tracy reminds him of his daughter.
Meadow, yeah.
Meadow, yeah, because I think they were around the same age, or I think Meadow may have been a little bit younger, but still, I mean...
How Meadow could have turned out.
Yeah, you know, if she took the wrong path, so... Yep, and then I'm trying to think the other song. The season 4 finale. I think it's season 4 finale. Whitecaps, episode 13.
They use Leyla. You wrote that it's an ode to Goodfellas. Kind of, yeah. But I remember in Goodfellas they just use like the piano coda for Leyla.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Because right. That's that is the montage where they find all the dead bodies, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. He didn't actually use the track. He just used the piano.
Yeah, just use the piano coda. No one ever thought to use that before Marty Scorsese did. Everybody just saw Leyla and just like heard Clapton's guitar portion and whatnot.
Right.
And I like how Chase rolled with it here because that part actually has the lyrics, and it highlights Tony's fracturing relationship with Carmela.
Yeah, and the funny thing is he drives up and he's playing it in his...
and all his stuff is being thrown out of his house, yeah.
Yeah, and he drives up and he's in that Suburban, and I swear it looks like a soccer mom kind of car. Yes. You know, he's like driving up in it, and I remember reading some of the YouTube comments when I was like looking at it, and people were like, why doesn't he get a better car? And he ends up getting a better car. He ends up getting the Escalade.
Yeah,
you know?
He does.
But he ends up driving up the driveway, and then he runs over the golf clubs, and he's like, what the hell? Like, you know, and he's got that song playing in the Suburban, and it was so perfect, I think, because I mean, when you look at the lyrics, "Got Me on My Knees," Leyla,
and he wasn't expecting that at all when he got home.
Yeah, I mean, and I, you know, I have to tip my hat off to Edie Falco and Gandolfini there. I think it was some of the best acting that I saw in that entire series. I mean, that scene where they're fighting. And you know, Carmela had heard had taken the phone call from his Russian Gumar.
Oh yeah,
and
like how you use Gumar for mistress.
Yeah, Gumar. Yeah, and that really upset her. But it was some of the best acting I've seen by two leads, you know, in the show.
And plus, when they get a good director behind it too, that helps. I think what's his face, Tim Van Patten.
Tim Van Patten. I think
he's really good.
And he's done, I think, some episodes of Boardwalk Empire.
He did To the Lost, the season 2 finale for Boardwalk Empire that really made them hit big. To the Lost. He did that episode. The Wire, Black Mirror. He's real good. He
kind of just like float. Does he just do TV, or has he done any films?
He does TV episodes. Yeah, I've never seen him do anything in film apart from what he used to be an actor himself.
Right.
Yeah, so and I remember him when he was a younger man. He used to do bit parts in small movies and whatnot before he transitioned to directing, where he really shined.
I think Van Patten may have acted in a Sopranos episode or something. He
probably did do a Hitchcockian appearance.
Yeah. But he's great. I mean, he does a lot of good stuff, and you know, I watch the behind the scenes stuff for movies and shows. And the actors always speak very highly of Tim Van Patten.
Yeah, for good reason. He knows how to tell a story.
Yeah. So yeah, season 4, you know, finale there with Whitecaps. I'll just touch a little bit more on that episode. There is a scene where Tony's trying to buy a vacation home for the family.
Yeah.
And he ends up backing out of that because of Carmela finding out about his affairs.
Extramarital affairs, yeah.
Right. So he ends up backing out of the real estate deal for the vacation house, and he ends up putting the boat ends up pulling a boat right up to the owner's house and playing music to kind of wear them down and piss them off.
Troll them, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, Tony was the pioneer of trolling, right?
Yeah, before we even called it trolling.
Exactly. Just annoy somebody enough, and they'll back out of the real estate deal, right?
Mm-hmm. It's a lesson learned from The Sopranos right there.
Yeah, exactly. So then we go over to season 5, and did you watch? Have you watched The Sopranos recently, or like again?
Not recently. What's it called? I did watch the whole episodes in which these
There were the
Which
music.
these scenes that we're discussing right now, I watched the full episodes in which they're taking place recently, but other than that, I haven't seen the full series since since it ended, really.
Right, which was back in 2007 or 2007, right? Yeah, excuse me. That
was a big day in the office that day because they had so many Soprano fans.
Yeah,
it was just like how when The Wire ended too. Everybody was talking about it. It's like, oh, this is going to be an event. It's like a pay-per-view event almost.
Yeah, exactly. I think that last episode, the season finale of season 6,
it's still talked about.
It's still talked about. Yeah.
And Chase, he's not one to really give any concrete answers. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah. But season 5, I guess we go over to that, and I guess a little bit of context for the listeners. There are some ex-cons that are part of the DeMeo and Lubertazzi crime family, I believe. Phil Leotardo gets out of prison.
Frank Vincent,
Frank, the late Frank Vincent.
Go home and get your fucking shine box.
Right. It's like I'm reading all the YouTube comments for like the scenes that he's in, and everyone's just like always does the shine box thing.
Yeah, that's like what he's most known for. It's like, okay, he's most known for getting his ass beat by Joe Pesci in Raging Bull and Goodfellas, but y'all forget he got Pesci back in Casino.
Oh yeah, and for his well, I think it's kind of irony, right, with the Goodfellas character that he plays called Billy Bats.
Yeah.
And then he kills Pesci
with bats.
With the bats.
He just hold it 3 minutes at a time and just beat him with it. You see? Watch.
Yeah. It's for anyone who hasn't seen that ending scene, it's quite disturbing.
Yeah.
It's quite violent, and I believe it was based off of a mafia killing that actually happened. Scorsese based that. Yeah.
Where 2 brothers were beaten to a pulp in a cornfield and buried in that same cornfield.
Right.
While they were still breathing.
Yeah, it was just, oh my gosh. You see that and you're like, yeah.
This is disturbing, but at the same time, there is a certain humor about it.
Yeah. There's a kind of a dark humor to it.
Yeah.
But I think, when I see that, it's like, yeah, don't get involved with organized crime. It's kind of like that scene's a lesson, right?
Yeah, it's a lesson, yeah.
Yeah, so...
or don't piss off the bosses, really. It's like, Pesci was doing a lot of shit in that film where they were like... Because you hear De Niro's voice, and he's like, the bosses had enough of Nicky. They had enough. How much more were they going to take? Yeah,
I loved how Scorsese did that, too, where you hear the monologue for... the voiceover of De Niro and then the voiceover Pesci when they're talking about a scene and kind of giving you context.
And then... Pesci, his monologues like going on in his head as the scene is.
And
happening.
then he gets hit. He's like,
don't give a
Yeah, yeah. I thought that was awesome. It's just great directing. But season 5, a lot of the ex-cons are coming out of jail, and specifically in Tony's case, Tony Blendetto, who is played by Steve Buscemi. He's coming out of jail, so Tony has to kind of get him acclimated, or wants to try to pull him back into the crime life, but then Blendetto kind of wants to
That's his cousin, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's his cousin. He kind of wants to stay straight and go a legitimate route.
That doesn't last long, though.
No, it doesn't.
And his actions end up starting a war between New York and New Jersey.
Right, yeah. So he ends up, I believe, killing Billy Leotardo in revenge for the the murder of Angelo, right?
Yes.
Angelo in the 5th season, who I guess he shared a jail cell with, but had said in the show that he was kind of like an uncle to him.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So I guess that's a little bit of context for.
Hold up. 1 second. Hold up.
A little bit of context there for listeners moving into season 5.
Right.
Sorry, I'm gonna take a sip of beer here.
No doubt. You got to catch up with me. I already finished mine.
And so that brings us to season 5, in
Camelot.
Camelot, right? Okay, yeah. So that is what episode is that? 11.
Number 7.
7. Excuse me, 7. So that episode, it's called Camelot. I think they name it, Chase names it Camelot because in the episode, Tony finds kind of reconnects with an old Gumar of his father, Johnny
Yeah.
Soprano. And she I guess she always keeps talking or mentioning to Tony that she had an affair with JFK, John F. Kennedy. So I think he named it Camelot because Camelot was essentially like the first 100 days of the Kennedy administration were called Camelot.
So they were called, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just kind of a reference to that. But I think Tony found out a lot about his father. He found out that his dad actually gave the dog away, remember?
Yeah, his dad was actually pretty terrible, and Tony created this narrative in his head where he idolized him.
Yeah.
But I think in this episode, in this scene right here, in the strip club, all of them around there, all those guys around there talking, and all those strippers around.
Right.
I think Tony, he was lying to cover his real feelings up until that point.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But in many ways, he turned out to be just like his father, too, having his own Gumars as well.
Yeah.
And all them dudes around there in the strip club, they're like, fuck our wives. They ruin us. We're better off these strippers.
Yeah, and it seems like the wives kind of know about it, but they don't openly acknowledge it, or
yeah, they'd be angry about it at first. Like Carmela, like how she was angry when the stripper called their home. I guess that's why she was really angry. It's like you called my home. You don't do that. You don't violate the man you're fucking. You don't violate his home. You don't contact him there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's bad enough you're doing that, but if you are, I don't want to know.
It was very kind of underhanded and vindictive by that his Gumar kind of blew up his life, right?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah, so
kind of reminds me of True Detective season 1 where Woody Harrelson's character, his life gets blown up by that one paralegal he was smashing.
Yeah, and that, I mean, another great show that we'll have to talk about, but
oh yeah.
So yeah, they play a track off of Linkin Park's in that scene. They play a track off of the Meteor album called Session. It's a DJ. It's an instrumental DJ track by
DJ Han.
DJ Han. Yeah, Mr. Han. And I think again works perfectly. You're kind of it fits very well with the scene because and I feel like the episode title too, Camelot. It was kind of like this. Great time, fantastic, almost surreal time of the Kennedy administration.
It was the best of the times.
The best of the times. And you kind of get that feeling when you listen to the song. It's like the ambiance, and you just feel like you're kind of like in a nirvana,
It's almost like a shift for me, really. It's
yeah.
Like the way the beat takes that so many twists and turns, and like the drum programming is like on steroids and whatnot.
Yeah.
Hyperactive.
Yeah.
It just kind of like it mirrors the racing thoughts that Tony has in his own head.
Yeah, and I thought it was just like it was such a cool choice because I mean I was a huge Linkin Park fan. I loved their first two records, and I just thought it was like it kind of was a surprise. I wasn't expecting that Chase would use Linkin Park because they were such a new band at the time. I mean,
yeah, they were.
I mean,
they had won Grammys, and they had won their first album, Hybrid Theory. That was like the best-selling album of 2001, even though it was released in late 2000.
Right. I think it went like triple platinum, right?
More than that, sold 5 million.
Oh, geez.
By the end of 2001, it sold 5 million.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that album was big.
And to top that off, like you do that album, you release Hybrid Theory, and then the next record, it's like, just as good, if not better. Every song is good on that album.
Yeah, they stepped it up a little bit. I mean, thematically, it was like they're still within the whole post-grunge kind of lyrics, the angst-ridden lyrics, but Bennington's voice, it got better. He was doing more with it. And Mike Shinoda, he was rapping more. And that's what that and his appearance on the Executioner's song 2 years prior.
It's going down.
Yeah, that's what convinced me. This guy can spit. I don't care what people can say.
And he can play like piano. He can play guitar.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the thing I always loved about Mike Shinoda was that like you would see him live and he would be, emceeing and rapping, and then he'd just like, he'd have his guitar behind his back,
Yeah.
and he would just like go up, they'd play Faint or, he raps in that song and he would just go up and like, pull a guitar and then just keep playing and performing. It was just like crazy. It's like how many instruments can this guy play?
He did that on the song Kenji that was part of his Fort Minor group.
Yeah, the Rising Tide, right?
Yeah, that one in 2005, yeah. He did the same thing when he performed Kenji live, had the guitar on his back, because that part had a really killer guitar riff that was really building up to the end of the song. It was like, okay, this guy's legit.
Yeah, he is. And but yeah, another cool addition by Chase into that into that scene with Session, and then we have another song which I think was a clever insertion, was Van Morrison's "Glad Tidings," and that's the episode. I believe it's the last episode of
season 5.
Season 5, yeah, where Tony ends up having to make a compromise. It's a real shit show, for a lack of a better word. I mean, he's got a big problem on his hands. His cousin, Tony Blundetto, played by Steve Buscemi, takes out the brother of Phil Leotardo, who's played by Frank Vincent. So he kills him in revenge for Angelo Lupertazzi getting murdered, and it's a nightmare. I mean, it's like Tony has to. And in that episode, I believe maybe it was the one before that, he kind of has a nightmare about it. I don't know if you remember that, where what's her name? Annette Bening. She's in that. Yeah, Annette Bening is in the episode. Yeah, and I was like, is that Annette Bening? And I think in the episode, Tony Soprano is like, he's having a dream, and he goes, "Are you Annette Bening?"
It's pretty surreal that they would do it like that.
Yeah. I guess she was a big fan of the show, though.
It's like how they did like 10 years later on the other HBO show, The Leftovers. How they had Mark Lynn Baker from Perfect Strangers.
Yeah.
When they had him play himself as like one of the people who didn't depart during the rapture. That was the theme of the show. It's like, it's surreal and self-referential to have these people in here playing themselves in some way.
Yeah, I mean, she's a great actress, but man, and American Beauty, she was like.
But she looked her best in The Great Outdoors. I liked her better as a brunette.
Yeah. So she, you see her in that episode. But back to, I guess, the last episode. It's a song called "Glad Tidings" by Van Morrison, and it's a song that's like the juxtaposition, I think, of that song, right? Because it's like you hear it and you feel like it's a happy, song, but it's not. It's like Tony has to make a really
difficult
tough,
choice,
decision there.
He killed his cousin because with that mercy kill, it's like better you get killed by me than get killed by the Lupertazzi crime family.
Yeah,
they'll do much brutal.
Yeah, and again, the lyrics I think match up perfectly with the theme of that scene. We'll send you glad tidings from New York, and I think Chase is using that there, and I think he's referring to the Lupertazzi family, Johnny Sacramone,
and by extension, New York City as a whole. Like we said before earlier in the podcast, there's a divide between New York and New Jersey. I mean, New Jersey, specifically the northern part, a lot of them have like something of an inferiority complex to their neighboring big city, because and from what I've seen over the years in like films like 54, American Gangster, and even what else? I want to say Sleepers, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like when they mention Jersey in there, it's like almost kind of disparagingly. And I remember in American Gangster, where Josh Brolin's character, who's an NYPD detective, he implicitly threatens Russell Crowe's character, a Newark, New Jersey detective, saying, "Never come up to New York City without my permission. Even if you want to see a fucking Broadway show, don't come up here."
Right.
And then later on, what's it called? Russell Crowe flips it back on him. It's like, you don't know what's wrong with us?
Yeah.
Everybody in Jersey's crazy. You know what we do here? Cops arrest bad guys. So next time you cross a bridge to come here, call me first. Make sure it's safe.
That's a great scene, man. I love that movie too, and
Me too.
And I think it's. I don't want to go on a tangent here about Ridley Scott, but again, I think with that movie, he just proves that he's such a versatile director. He could do anything.
Have you seen the unrated version of that film of American Gangster?
No.
Yeah, that was pretty good too. It's a little bit longer, but much like Copland, which is also another New York, New Jersey divide with Stallone and some other Italian American actors.
De Niro, I think, is in it.
De Niro's in it. Ray Liotta. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I heard that's a great film.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet, but I want to see it. I have to see it. Everyone keeps telling me to see Copland.
I'm surprised you have not, Andrew. I'm really surprised you not. It's a good one.
It's a homework assignment, Si. I'll take it. I'll take it.
If you're going to see the director's cut. That one makes more sense than the theatrical cut that they keep showing on cable right now.
Okay. Yeah, it's never as good, right, when they show it on cable,
Even on premium cable, it's like, okay, the version I saw first was the director's cut, and that's what made me go out and buy the film. But then when I saw the lobotomized version that they have on Epix or Showtime, it's like, what are you people doing? This version doesn't make no sense.
And it's so funny to see a guy Scorsese film, like Goodfellas on TV, because it gets edited out. Like they edit out every other word because there's so many curse words.
You can't show this on TV. No.
Yeah.
Show it on HBO.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's like when USA first tried to show what's it called, Basic Instinct.
Oh,
I was like, why would you do
Good
that
luck,
for?
right?
Yeah. Like people don't want to see no plot. They just want to see the sex scenes, which you guys won't let them see.
And they only know that one scene, right? So I mean, it's
the leg
Sharon
crossing
Stone,
scene.
the leg crossing scene. It's like, all
Which
right.
if you pause it just right, yeah.
Yeah. So, but that song I think is a perfect one for that scene, because you have to kind of feel for Tony in that situation, because he's got a real tough choice to make.
He has to kill his own blood.
Yeah, he's got to kill his own cousin. And it is a disturbing scene, but you realize how much worse it would have been for Tony Blundetto if Phil Leotardo had got his hands on him.
Oh yeah, and Phil Leotardo, he was a vengeful man.
Yeah,
there's no telling how he would have killed Tony.
That man has a lot of anger, and to segue into the next song is when. It's actually a montage at the end of, what was it?
We can talk about Back in Black.
Oh, whoops! I'm getting too ambitious here and too excited about this Sopranos music. So
slow down.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually skipped over one of the items we want to cover. So that brings us into the next episode 11 of season 5, called Cold Stones. Actually, you know what? I think I made a goof here. That's actually season 6. It's not season 5, but we'll just roll with it here and go with episode 14 of season 5. Actually, I think I'm jumping all over the place here.
Yeah, you are actually.
I think we're jumping into season 6 now, because I think we covered all of season 5.
Yeah, this is season 6. Cold Stones. And the next one. Those are season 6.
Sorry about that, guys.
Remember, season 6 was divided into 2 parts, too. So.
Right. Yeah, because of the writer's strike, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was kind of weird, wasn't it?
The writer's strike was definitely weird. I mean, at the time, it led to a temporary, they cut the seasons in half for a lot of my shows. Like Heroes was cut in half, House was cut in half, but they managed to incorporate portions of the writer's strike within the show, and still managed to end it on a good 2-part episode, which I thought was one of their best season finales.
Yeah, that was an interesting time, because all those writers went on strike, and it's like you wondered when we were actually. I mean, I think it was for like TV shows too, like The Late Night and Jay Leno, and even
Real Time with Bill Maher, because he didn't have his usual intro that he usually has. He just went right. He tried to ad lib it, right? Tried to wing it at first. It was like, it's not good without your writers, dude.
I remember the movies during that time period too, which I think was 2006 or 2007.
Yeah.
Were bad. Were just awful. I remember seeing a lot of really bad movies that year, and and it's probably like you said, it's probably because there was no writers there to actually write good content, write good dialogue, come up with good storylines.
2006, yeah, there were plenty of bad movies I saw during that year, but 2007, I beg to differ. Like American Gangster was one, No Country for Old Men, Grindhouse.
Yeah. Dude, No Country for Old Men. What? And that movie doesn't even have any music.
It has no music at all. It took me to the second time I viewed it. That's when I realized there's no score in here at all.
Yeah,
that kind of makes it a little bit more ominous.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it makes the movie more powerful, right?
It does, yeah. I mean, even in scenes like the most tensest scenes in the film, all of which involve Shigar, it's like, okay, you don't need no music for this. That motherfucker's scary enough.
Yeah, and a great performance by Javier Bardem. I mean,
got him an Oscar, yeah.
Yeah, and he's just a phenomenal actor. I mean, I want to see him more. I wish he would get more.
You do
more movies.
You do. When he's by his other name, Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yeah. Oh, he's got another stage.
No. Jeffrey Dean Morgan's is an actor too. He looks just like Javier Bardem.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah.
He was in Watchmen, and he plays Negan on The Walking Dead.
Okay, all right, yeah, that's another show I need to watch. Walking Dead.
I quit after season 7.
It seems like it goes on forever, but
it could go on forever, and that's the problem.
Right. I agree. So yeah, it's we're in season 6 now, and we are talking about Cold Stones, episode 11.
Tony's getting roadhead.
Yeah, he's getting his whistle greased, and by one of his fellow employees. A stripper. He's back in a new car now, the Escalade, which is better than the soccer mom Suburban that he was in.
Oh yeah.
But another great song.
Back in Black in a literal sense, considering the Escalade is a black.
Yeah.
It's pretty much a black truck. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't think about that. A lot of the Escalades that when I think of an Escalade, I think of a black Escalade. But I guess to give some of the listeners context here, it's season 6. It's the last season of The Sopranos, and this scene here is Tony in an Escalade with a stripper, and she's giving him a roadhead. But AC/DC, I mean, you know, I'm a huge AC/DC fan. I love all their music. I think they're incredible, and this is another great song that Chase kind of puts in there. I think you hear it. It's playing on the radio, but Tony, you know, to give some backstory to this season, Tony was shot. I believe it was in it was the first episode of season.
Second or first episode, yeah.
Yeah, Tony shot by his uncle Junior, and we start to see Junior's health and mental health kind of decay. They think he's going senile. And
he had signs of that from the pilot episode.
Oh yeah, right. You know, he's a bitter old man, but and he's starting to lose his mental sharpness. So Tony ends up, having to pull the weight, I guess, with taking care of Junior, excuse me, and then he ends up getting shot by Junior, and I think it was actually Bobby that was supposed to go over and take care of Junior, but Tony says, screw it, I'm going to go do it myself.
Yeah.
Janice is now married to Bobby. God, Janice. She is the worst character in that show. I hate her.
You hated her?
I just can't stand her. She's so annoying, and she's just a terrible person.
The one character I thought that was the most terrible in my mind was called John Hurd's character.
John Hurd.
Yeah, he played the FBI agent that was blackmailing Big Pussy.
Oh, right.
Manzinkian or something.
Okay.
He got caught in a brothel, got arrested there, identified as a cop, and in shame he jumped off the bridge.
Oh, right. Yeah. He was actually in that dream with Annette
Bening.
Annette Bening, yeah. He was like kind of an animal.
Yeah, he was.
He's just, all over the place. I mean, the guy was a drunk and a gambler. A
drunk, degenerate gambler is what they called him.
Right. So, but anyways, long story short, Tony ends up getting shot by Junior, and he's in the hospital. He miraculously comes out of this coma because he takes a belly shot from Junior.
Yeah, belly shots are no joke.
Yeah, and
in movies anyway.
Yeah, and in real life too, right? Yeah. So he ends up coming out of this coma, and he ends up surviving miraculously, and he's back. You think he's going to end up,
changing his ways,
changing his life, and becoming more faithful to his wife, who helped him through this terrible debacle. And you find out he's just back to his own way, which gets me back to
a new car, but still back to his old ways.
Right, and back in black. Right, it's kind of I think that's really the theme of that scene. He's back to his old ways again of being not a faithful husband.
But to contrast that, in that same scene, the AC/DC Back in Black, it transitions over to Simple Man by Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Right.
Yeah, and those lyrics, they're a little bit more tame. They're about being, I guess, morally upright, I guess.
Yeah, being a good guy.
Yeah.
Being a good, and it's like, it's just not what Tony is. I mean, you root for him throughout the show,
even though he's bad.
He's an anti-hero, I guess, right? Or
like what's it called? Like back that decade, the last decade, a lot of TV shows, they were rife with that kind of protagonist who was a white anti-authoritarian anti-hero, like Walter White from Breaking Bad, Don Draper from Mad Men, Tony Soprano, Jimmy McNulty from The Wire to an extent.
Oh yeah.
Greg House from House. Yeah.
Yeah, he has his. McNulty had his moments, right?
Oh yeah, like that episode in season 2 where he got with that waitress and did that drunken turnaround while the Pogues are playing. I was like, okay.
He crashes his car, right?
Like twice, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, McNulty, I don't care if you're a fictional character. You can do what you want. This scene made you a legend for me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he was just such an iconic character, and one of my favorites there.
He was one of my favorites in the TV show as well.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's another one. I mean, one of my favorite bands, AC/DC, Back in Black, great album.
Do you have Powerage?
Oh yeah, I love Powerage. Powerage. That's such a sleeper record too.
It is.
No one really knows about it, and it's like Bon Scott. It's another good one. It's just another I think they put out 17 albums or something, or something ridiculous like that.
Around that time, was it called the late 70s, early 80s? They were really just doing shit, putting at their peak.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like, how do bands keep doing that? They put out all that music.
Even in the 90s too, where they were featured on the Last Action Hero soundtrack with that song "Big Gun."
Big Gun.
Yeah,
I love that one.
me too.
That's a good one.
That soundtrack was everywhere. That soundtrack did better than the movie itself.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that was the first time they teamed up with Rick Rubin.
Oh,
AC/DC teamed up with Rick Rubin, and then they did what was that album, Ballbreaker?
Oh yeah, they did. Rubin was in his rock phase back then with American Records. He was producing for all the rock bands, Black Crowes, Red Hot Chili Peppers, etc.
Yeah. So So God, what are we covering next? Oh, okay. I think it's John Cooper Clarke.
Oh yeah, this is a good scene.
This is one of the best, I think.
Oh yeah.
So we have. I'm trying to think of great montages. We covered the Police. What was it? Rumble. That was a good one. This one is another top.
This one is very effective.
A great ending.
It's eerie.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the way it transitions from the church, what's his face, Phil, basically
talking about his legacy.
Yeah, no more Butchie, no more of this,
no more of that. Yeah, and so. Yeah, the scene opens up where Phil Leotardo, played by Frank Vincent, is essentially at what it would be a birthday celebration for Billy Leotardo, who is his late brother. And he's speaking with Butchie, who's his, I guess, one of his associates in the Lupertazzi family. And he's talking about how he compromised all of his life. He was complaining about, how his family
changed their name.
Yeah, from
Leonardo to Leotardo.
Yeah, that was a funny scene. And he's sitting there talking to Butchie about this, and he said, if I could have done it over, I would have. I've compromised all my life, and you can really kind of sense the rage of Phil in this scene. He's tired of having to compromise and kind of take the back seat. And, I think the thing that's interesting about that is there's kind of a power struggle going on with the Lupertazzi family.
Yeah, there is.
You have Doc Santoro, who's trying to take the reins.
Yeah.
And then you have Little Carmine, who is, the son, I guess, the younger son, who was going to take over. And then you have Johnny Sack, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I guess Johnny Sack is actually in jail at that point, right?
He is in jail, yeah.
Yeah, he's in jail.
In Breaking Bad, they named the character Juan Bolsa in honor of Johnny Sack.
Really?
Yeah, Juan being John's, Bolsa being a bag or sack.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Man, I liked that actor who played Johnny Sack. It was Vincent. I forget his name. I forget his name. I'm blanking on it right now.
It's an Italian name. I forget his name.
Yeah, he was great though. I thought him and Tony, Gandolfini and what's his name, Joe Pantoliano. I can't say
Joe Pantoliano.
Pantoliano. Yeah, they were three heavyweights in that show.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
They're the ones who have the most experience.
And Frank Vincent too.
Frank Vincent's so underrated, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so sad to see that he had passed away. I guess during an operation, or he was some sort of complications
from an operation. Yeah.
Yeah, he was great, man. Been in so many great films, but yeah, essentially in this scene, he's very angry, and he wants to. You can just tell that he's going to go off on Tony's family. Yeah. So
he's angry they killed his brother. Yeah.
Yeah. So you hear this song. It's called "Everything in Chickentown" by John Cooper Clarke, and it's a great montage of the lyrics. You hear him say "bloody" a lot, so obviously that something is going to go down.
Not just with Phil, but what's it called when it transitions over to the baptism with Christopher. Yeah. It's like Tony and Christopher, they're smiling with each other, but it's like the look that Tony gives him is like he's going to kill you.
Yeah, and there's like you could just see the tension between those two, right?
And and the music makes it even more tense because it's eerie. And in the lyrics, the fact they use bloody with so much regularity in there, it's like
the bloody view is bloody vial, the 4 bloody miles and bloody miles, the bloody babies bloody cry, the bloody flowers bloody died.
You're sparing nobody.
Yeah. I mean,
anybody in the way of Phil's rage or Tony's rage, it's like you're gonna get got.
Yeah. There's one on here, Si, I want to talk about. I think it's important, and forgive me for not putting in my notes, but sure. This is in essentially the same episode that we're going to talk about shortly. It's episode 18, Kennedy and Heidi. It's season 6. It's a song called "Comfortably Numb." I'm sure you're familiar with it. Yeah, it's a Pink Floyd song, and it's actually on the Departed soundtrack too, which
a live version of it though with
Van
Morrison and Roger Waters. Yeah,
Roger Waters. Yeah, I want to talk about it because I think it's very, very important. I think to the show and brilliant. I think on Chase's part.
What episode did they use it in?
It's Kennedy and Heidi.
They use it in the same episode.
Yeah, it's the episode where Chris Moltisanti has his car accident and then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So. Essentially, this song is a live version, like you said. It comes from the Departed soundtrack, and it's Roger Waters and Van Morrison. It's a live version.
Came out in 1990.
Yeah, and why I think it's so important is because of the use of the lyrics and how Chase kind of pairs it up in the scene. So Tony and Chris are driving in their SUV, and he puts in that soundtrack, the Departed soundtrack, and the lyrics kind of go like this. It was like, when I was a child, I caught a fleet glimpse of the out of the corner of my eye. And when you see the scene and how it's filmed, you notice that Tony notices that Christopher hasn't kicked his drug habit yet. He's kind of relapsed.
His fleeting glimpse.
Yeah, his fleeting glimpse, right? Out of the corner of his eye, because in the way it's being filmed, Tony's looking at him. He's like, he's still high. Like this guy's still doing drugs. And I just thought that was so clever and awesome of like Chase to do that. I mean,
it is good when you got a producer that knows how to use music.
Yeah, and it's just perfect. And then they have the car accident. And Chris unfortunately passes away. But to go back to the lyrics there, he says, Waters is singing, I cannot put my finger on it now. The child is grown.
The dream is gone.
The dream is gone. And I think that maybe he may use that song as well because it's a kind of a commentary on Christopher's character.
Yeah.
Right? Like the child is grown, Christopher's a grown man, but he wasn't what Tony wanted him to be, right?
A lot of the men in the show, it applies to all the men in the show, really.
Yeah.
Tony, Christopher, they're not what they thought they would be.
Right.
None of what they dreamed they would be during childhood.
Yeah.
The dream is gone, child is grown, but...
Yeah, and, Tony essentially wanted him to kind of take over, right? I mean,
right.
He's the consigliere... he's the advisor to Tony, but I think
he wanted him as his heir. I mean, his own son was pretty much too young for it, I guess, or not involved in the business.
And he didn't want AJ to be a part of that either.
No.
I mean, I think he talks about that. So I think that there's Comfortably Numb. There's so many songs and so much music that we could talk about right now. I mean, I just wanted to make sure that we covered that one because I think it's brilliant. It's brilliant on Chase's part. So yeah, we go back to that same episode 18, where we have Kennedy and Heidi. That's the name of the episode. And then we see the Pretenders again.
We see
them used.
The Adulteress.
The Adulteress.
A song they got with lyrics this time.
Yeah. And then, again, I think it's another one like Back in Black.
Mm-hmm.
It just fits perfectly. I mean, it's back to Tony's back to his,
back to his adultering ways.
Yeah, he's back to his adultering ways. So it shows, it's played in that scene where...
he's having sex with a stripper after the stripper that Chris knew.
Yeah, that Chris used to be with, which I think is completely, it's really messed up. I mean, it's really messed up. But
and she brings out a joint after they have sex.
Yeah, and then
I think it's probably the first time I've seen Tony smoke weed on the show at all.
Yeah,
or any drug that's not Prozac.
Yeah, exactly right. And And then he ends up taking, what is it?
Peyote?
Peyote, yeah. And then they go out and go to Joshua Tree and all that. And he ends up winning all this money at the casino in Vegas.
Why do they do that for? It's like you take peyote or what's it called, or mushrooms, and you got to go out to the Joshua Tree. Just the Entourage did the same thing too.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, why does that drug make you want to drive out to the desert?
Joshua Tree, yeah. Is that standard operating procedure?
Yeah, yeah. It's just like queue up. All right, we have to get in a car and drive out to Joshua Tree.
Mm-hmm.
Never understood it, but anyways, I digress.
And the lyrics of this song are saying from the point of view of the stripper.
Yeah. She makes him. There's a line in there, the lyric in there, which says, "And I make good tea. I stand accused of the worst crime in history. That's my mystery. I'm the adulteress." And it fits perfectly. I mean, she pours in that wine. When Tony first shows up at her apartment.
Yeah.
And then he drops the news that Chris is dead. So I mean,
then they go right to bed.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, come on, Tony.
Comfort sex or.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, like you kind of despise Tony at that point, right? Because
it's like, come on, dude, that's your man's. That's your man's girl right there. Even if she is a stripper, come on, you just don't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like fuck someone else.
Yeah. So I don't know. And then that brings us to the last episode of the series, episode 21, Made in America, which I love that title. It's perfect.
It encapsulates the whole series, really.
Yeah, I mean...
the American Mafia that's made in America.
Right, and Tony being a made guy,
Yeah.
be made in America. And then you also see it, you see it on products, like not many anymore, but...
That's true.
But yeah, I think that's pretty fitting right now. But you hear it... you hear it in the album. You hear it in the episode title, but it's perfect because I think it captures a couple of different themes. Right, you have the mafia theme there, and you have Made in America, where it kind of talks about the American dream. I think I don't know what you think about that, but
it does. I mean, there is references to the quote unquote American dream in there, and you could say that in many ways Tony achieved it at some point, being at the height of the mafia chain.
Right.
But in this episode here, it's like there's a certain tragedy about its use.
Yeah.
Especially considering where they all end up in that diner at the end of the final scene.
Yeah. How'd you feel about that, the way it ended?
The way it ended is like, I expected more of it, to tell you the truth.
Right.
It's like, at first I thought Meadow and her inability to parallel park for shit, it's like, okay, something's going to happen to her. I mean, is Tony going to get whacked? And then
there's the tension there.
There is a tension, yeah, what is going to happen? And then when Meadow gets in, and then you hear the bell ring, and Tony looks up, the screen just cuts to black.
Right.
At first, I thought, "Hello." I start smacking my TV. "Hello, what's
wrong?"
What's wrong?
They were saying that though, right? Like that they thought there was a glitch in the FBI. Or, I was going to say the FBI, the
FCC?
the HBO like system where like it crashed or something. You felt like because you see that black.
Yeah.
Screen, and you're like, what the hell?
But that was intentional, though.
Yeah. I think it goes back to a couple different episodes in season 6 where Bobby's talking about you probably don't even hear it when he was referencing when you get killed, when you die, you probably don't hear it coming.
That's true. Yeah, that's good. That could also be a reference to that. But Chase, he's not given an inch about it to anybody.
Yeah, he's not. I don't think he's ever going to really admit it. But there's also another reference to it where Silvio is he's talking to Jerry Tortiano,
right.
And then Tortiano gets killed by one of Doc Santoro's henchmen. But Silvio is having dinner with him, with Jerry and 2 other girls, and then Silvio makes reference to it in another scene when he's talking to Tony and in the strip club where he says, I didn't even hear it, like where he was referencing when Jerry got shot. He's like, I didn't even hear it,
Just one simple line like that, it carries a lot of weight later on.
Yeah.
That's how layered the show is.
Yeah, and Chase made reference, I think, in an interview made reference to it. He said everything was there, everything had been laid out. The clues had been laid out. So I don't know. I still think it was intentional just to kind of leave things open. There's also another, I don't know if you heard about this, there's a prequel that Chase is developing. It's a movie.
Okay.
It's a film called The Many Saints of Newark. So it's Chase and another guy, I think his name's Lawrence Connor, wrote the script. So it's going to be a movie, and it sounds pretty exciting, man. Like
Pre-Tony Soprano, or
we're like Johnny Boy, his dad and Junior. Come a little closer to the mic.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be pretty exciting, and I think we'll probably see some of the characters from the original series in it. Maybe, I don't know.
Some of them, maybe, yeah.
Or maybe like younger versions of
them. We would have to, yeah.
It wouldn't make any sense to see Silvio, right? And,
or Gandolfini and Frank Vincent. They're dead now, and you can't like superimpose younger CGI versions of them on another actor's body.
Yeah. So,
and like the title itself, Made in America. I mean, given what we've seen the entire series up to that point, like Tony lying, killing, pillaging, robbing, cheating. In many ways, that's his idea of the American way.
Yeah.
And it's like, and we cheered him on for that all 6 seasons, knowing what he's doing was wrong, but it reflects the American viewer as well.
Yeah. And that final scene where they use Journey's "Don't Stop Believing," another brilliant choice, but
sorry to cut you off.
Sure, no worries.
He goes through other song choices first when he's in that diner looking for what to listen to.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah, and like he finally settles on the Journey song "Don't Stop Believing." Because at this point he's like, I wouldn't say at his lowest, but he knows he might be going down.
And I feel like that's you feel that throughout the entire episode. You're like, the walls crumbling, like the everything's just kind of falling apart. Carlo is flipped to the FBI. People have been.
It's only a matter of time before they get Tony as well too.
Yeah,
or somebody gets him, whether the streets or the law.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of feel this. It's a feeling of despair throughout the entire episode because you don't know what the heck's going to happen, and you see various people walk into the diner. Mm-hmm. So you're like,
is this a person who's going to shoot him or what, or do something?
Yeah. It could be anybody, right?
It could be anyone. Yeah,
it could be anybody. So then they use that song, Journey's "Don't Stop Believing." I think it's just a great choice. And when you look at the lyrics, right, just a small town girl living in a lonely world. She took the midnight train going anywhere. Just a city boy, born and raised in South Detroit. I mean, I know it's not in South Detroit, but. Yeah. He took that midnight train going. He took the midnight train going anywhere. I think Chase is kind of providing some commentary on Carmela and Tony's relationship.
It is some commentary on it. Yes, it is. Small town girl. I mean, like people born in a small town. It's like they get bored, so they want to get their first ticket out anywhere.
Yeah. And that line. He took the midnight train going anywhere.
Yeah.
They were both kind of taking the midnight train, right?
They were.
And it's a dark train. It's a dark path. And I think they both
knew it.
They both knew what they were getting into. Carmela's not,
She's not stupid. I mean, she's a mobster's wife, but she knows what's up.
Yeah. And, I was reading that interview. I think I put a little excerpt in our notes here about the...
From Chase?
Yeah, from Chase. And he just says, essentially, they knew what they were getting involved in. The midnight train is a dark train, but I think the point is, don't stop believing that life is good. Life can still be good. You still have your family, and I think you can see Tony's is still.
He still has his family.
Yeah, and he's enjoying it, right?
Mm-hmm. And for what may or may not be a final moment for him.
Yeah. And AJ makes a reference to it too. He says, "Didn't you say at one point,
remember the good
times, right?" Yeah.
And Tony's like, "I said that? Yeah, you did say that.
Yeah, you said that." So, that's and I think "Don't Stop Believing." Maybe it's a reference to "Don't Stop Believing the American Dream," that you can, still be. It could still work for some people.
And to use a song like that because it's very upbeat.
Yeah.
And considering everything that happened throughout the series, all the deaths, all the betrayal, the cheating, it's like it's a way to end it on a good note, I guess.
Yeah, some positivity.
Yeah.
So, but I know that ending is so controversial, and everyone wonders.
That and the ending of Lost. People still talk about those two endings to this day.
Yeah. But man, a great show and some of the best music I've heard, and
HBO, they have a way of using their TV shows the way they incorporate music in there, sometimes it makes me search right after the episode, like, what song was this? I've never heard that.
Yeah.
This show made me do that. The ending montages of The Wire had me doing that because they barely use that much music in between episodes.
Right.
In that series.
Right.
And what else? Entourage. That's another one as well.
A lot of good music in that one.
And True Detective. They got me into Townes Van Zandt.
Yeah.
The way they use one of his old country songs in Carcosa, one of the Carcosa episodes, it's like,
yeah,
okay, if this song doesn't scare the shit out of people like it does me, it's like then I don't know what will.
Yeah, Lara Lynn too in that
season 2. Yeah,
in season 2. Yeah, and I think she has maybe one song I think in season 1, but
season 1.
She may have one in one because I think that's how she got connected in the show. I think she knew the music supervisor.
Can't remember.
I could be wrong, but
either way, her songs were good in season 2.
Yeah,
and people sleep on season 2 a lot. We knew it wasn't going to be as good as season 1 going in, but it's good in its own right.
Yeah, I think it was a little rushed, but
yeah, I mean, that's what I thought at first too, because I couldn't really keep up with the plot. But when I stayed home one day and watched the whole thing for a second time, I was like, okay, this makes sense now, and it's actually pretty smart.
Yeah.
Not as doesn't have the same replay value as season 1, but like I said, good in its own right.
Yeah. Well, hey man, thanks so much for doing this. This was a pleasure. It was awesome.
Oh, we gotta do this again.
We gotta do it again. We gotta do it again.
We got plenty to discuss.
All right, man. Thanks for doing it. Take care.
No doubt.
This podcast is available on iTunes, SoundCloud, Acast, Google Music, Stitcher. So if you don't mind, please leave a review and give me some feedback. I'd really appreciate that. If you'd like to connect with me on social media, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm also on Untapped. My username is Brewtuned. This is Andrew signing off. Cheers. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel and follow RoadTunes Reviews on Blogger, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And as always, thank you so much for your support.